it started recording. All right. You know what? I love the little clips and all that you wear all the time. Yes.
That's my thing. That's the only one I have.
Yeah, but you also have those two ponies which are missing today, which also look very cute.
Yeah, I don't. I've cut it differently.
Okay, so you can't make them now.
Yeah, ponies were. I think it's been a while. So here I don't feel like it works somehow. It was working. It
definitely works in Bologna. That's for sure.
Yeah, right. Like over there, it feels okay. Like here, it feels odd. You don't feel. It doesn't feel the same.
Achha, so listen.
How are you?
All well. Yeah, I'm just trying to do this series around all the books, and so I really want to speak with all the fabulous bunch of illustrators that you are. Okay, and I thought it would be nice, go behind the scene from the illustrator's point of view and how the artwork, etc., came about and all that.
Yeah.
Okay. Ruchi, a big warm welcome. Everyone knows the fantastic work that Ruchi is doing, of course. She's one of the finest illustrators we have in the country, and increasingly internationally also. She is, there's such a delicate charm to her illustrations that immediately, you feel, you're transported to some sort of a dream world when you look at her illustrations. And then, otherwise, she an MA in children's book illustrations from the Cambridge School of Art. So we'll talk a little bit about that influence also in a bit, Ruchi. But to begin with, of course. And the book she's done for Pickle, Yolk, of course, is Dance of the Wild. And the three gorgeous.
One of my favorites.
Gorgeous because of RUCHI MHASANE. Yes. All right. So now you tell me.
No, because of you and the production and everything.
No, you tell me what made you say yes to it. Before we go to that, we must let everyone know that we met for the very first time in Bologna. Actually, it's strange that we had to go all the way to Bologna so I went from Delhi and Ruchi was from Bombay, and we met there. And it felt quite nice meeting there because I had a very right from the first moment, it was a very, very warm sort of a connect that I felt with you, Ruchi, being very honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think all of that is you.
No, all of that is you.
So beautifully.
All of that is you, okay? So tell me now, and that was the first time when we were discussing the book per se. I think we'd already interacted over the email a few times before that for the book, right? For Dance of the Wild.
I think so. Yeah.
So
we got in touch, I think, first via email.
Yes.
I think Sangeeta introduced us.
Yes.
If I'm not wrong.
Yes.
And
I'm eternally grateful to Sangeeta for that.
She really makes these beautiful connections. And she's also
when
awesome.
we talk about Sangeeta, it's Sangeeta Mehta Bhansali of the one and only Kahani Tree, Bombay. Yes. So
I think we, if I remember correctly, we met at Bologna once, and then you had flown into Bombay once.
Yes.
Actually,
Bombay is when we signed the contract. But by which time we had already, so between Bologna and Bombay, we knew we were doing this book. Yes.
Yeah.
So, Ruchi, okay. So first things first, what made you say yes to this project? Because I'm sure there'll be many, many projects coming your way, and there would have been even then. And this we are talking about 2014 or 15.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure you don't say yes to everything that comes your way.
No.
So what was it in this story that you felt like saying yes to it?
Actually, I was not doing too many like Indian content, which was sort of progressive. It wasn't not progressive. It was just not overtly. This was like the manuscript, and the first text. I remember the first manuscript, the first text that you sent me was very different,
Was
and
it?
it got changed so much. And but from the beginning, it was very like true and bold, and it was just one of those things that I actually don't. I'm actually not very well. I am picky, but I'm not very picky because I do have to
Yeah.
sort of, I like working with different things. But this was really like it looked promising from the very like the first thing I read. It was
Okay.
just one of those stories that are so, and it was also paced with like it was written for a picture book,
Yes.
which is strange, but a lot of texts are not written with a picture book format in mind.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they are sometimes longer, or they are more descriptive, or they are the picture book form requires this sort of type of
Yeah,
writing
there's a
which
different
was
language.
there.
There's a different picture book language that you may have sort of
Yeah,
maybe connected with. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, maybe. Oh,
Which
yay!
it was from the beginning. I mean, I know you edited it a lot,
Yeah.
but it was like
No,
that from the
but
beginning. It
yeah,
had that essence.
but Ruchi, I think the editing also happened because of the way we constantly uh, kept on discussing, and I mean, that was such a beautiful thing with you because uh, so after a while, I mean, once Ruchi started working on it, or even thinking of visualizing the frames and all that, it stopped being it stopped being a story which was written by me, that sort of a thing. It was as if it's as much Ruchi's as it is, I mean, as those words are mine. So I mean, there were always there was this constant back and forth that we would do with the words also, remember? uh,
Yeah, yeah,
so many
yeah.
suggestions
Because
came from you.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I said. I mean, so many wonderful suggestions were coming from you all the time, and just
Yeah.
incorporating all of that, the feedback that was coming from you. So it was such a wonderful way of working on a book.
Yeah, it's but I think the best picture books actually work when this kind of thing happens,
Yeah, yeah,
because it's not two different tracks, right? It's a
yes,
collaboration
yes,
in
yes,
a very sort of
yes,
good way, and that happened, and it's a large part of the credit is to you because you allowed it to happen, because it's hard. Like I can understand how hard it is for a writer to let go of certain words, and to it's I can understand that it's hard, but it it works because then you can. And also for an illustrator, I mean, I don't know how many things I changed, but it's hard, and you have to do it anyway,
yeah,
and that's what makes it so nice, because then you're putting it together. The best collaborations are when the best picture books are when people collaborate,
yeah,
and they can collaborate without letting it letting it jar, or
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
without getting into sort of. But we never had that. Like
We
you
never had.
were so good
I
from
mean,
the
that's the thing.
beginning.
It was seamless right from day one. It didn't really seem. I mean, there were
Yeah,
no jerks. At no point did we feel that okay, that something is not. It was almost, I don't know how to put it. Yeah, it was like a seamless track
I
that
think we were just
happened.
both happy to make it better,
Yes, I know, and I mean, there was
and
a lot of
that is
fussing that
actually
went
rare.
about. There was a lot of fussing that went about all the time in terms of making it
Yeah,
better and better
yeah,
and better, and we didn't know where to stop. That was the
yeah,
other thing. I feel.
yeah.
I mean,
I remember that
at
too.
one
It
stage we
went on for two years.
yeah, but also, I mean, that okay, finally, both of us deeming it done. That itself was a big thing because we just
Yes,
wouldn't
yes.
allow ourselves to think that okay, we had reached a stage where it was done. Because we were constantly trying to chisel it
Yeah.
and make it better. And I don't know. That's it was fun. I mean, finally, that's what the book finally came out as.
I'm so happy with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you tell me now.
Yeah.
In terms of so very quickly, in terms of the way you have shown the character. So there is the girl uh, who we call Shilu, And she's not okay. So there's Shilu there, and there's grandma, and there is mom, and of course there's pirate. Okay, the cat. So I mean, what kind of thoughts went through your mind when you were getting them in place? The visual characterization of these.
I think I think more than the characterization, I was worried about the sort of the gesture, like because she had to be shown and not shown at the same time.
Absolutely.
With because we decided that it's quite a bold thing
Yeah.
to show, and then so it's better not to actually,
Yeah.
like, the
In
illustrations have
fact,
to do that.
yeah. In fact, if I can just give a glimpse of what Ruchi is trying to say, later maybe I'll insert a thing.
Oh, go ahead.
Um, but this is so. So when saying we had to show and not show, uh, it's this kind of frontal nudity that we are talking about in a child. So it was very tricky because this book is about a girl, young girl, maybe 5 or 6, who or 4, who just loves to be wild and free, and one of the biggest ways she feels that wildness in her is when she is without clothes. And she feels all free when she's without clothes. So this entire book is about her wanting to be wild and free in that sense. And therefore it was very tricky because we had to show pages with nudity. I won't show all the pages, of course, but this is such a beautiful spread that, and we'll come to it, of course. And as you can see, I mean, you'll have to tell us, Ruchi, how did you manage to show it and yet not, or the other way around, not show it and yet?
It's I Yeah, I think it's just that there are some things which, I mean, some, like, nudity is sometimes okay if it's
Beautifully.
not. I don't know. It's quite difficult to know. Yeah, it's actually, and children, like,
Yes,
children, right? Like, it's not even, there's
yes.
nothing, but it's still something sensitive that you need to think about. I don't know how exactly. A lot of these things you come to after you draw a little bit, so you just keep drawing, and then you keep, like, the strokes do the work for you. So it's not really like a intellectual process. It's more it just happens on the paper,
Wow.
and then you sort of choose. So it's a lot of failures, obviously, but you try drawing a lot of gestures and a range of movements and children, and then you try doing it with clothes and then without clothes, or the other way around. You try without the clothes first, or you get the shapes and everything, and then at some points you realize that certain gestures are fine. They don't really, you don't see much, or those kind of things. And then I think it was just a lot of drawing. I think the early sketches were not as correct anatomically and all that. I remember that they were quite rough, because it's actually hard to draw. uh, it takes me some time to get to, like, a correct drawing.
Okay.
uh, so and then a lot of it came with the drawing was one part where we did the pencil sketches, which was
Hmm.
like outline, and then later it was the color, so the way it's um,
Yeah, that's the other
drawn.
thing
I
I
mean,
wanted to ask. I mean,
the
the
final image is drawn.
yeah, the choice of colors and the it's so gentle, and it's all pastel colors, and it's so nuanced. So yeah, I mean, how did you arrive at all? In any case, it's your signature style because you like it to be dreamy and
Yeah,
soft and gentle. I mean, that's those are the kind of illustrations you do. I think I'm sure enjoy doing the most. Uh,
yeah.
so this was there in line with that, but still there is such a dreamlike charm to this. So I mean, again, in terms of colors that you picked up, so there's a certain color scheme. I don't know whether you'd be calling it a color scheme.
Yeah, I mean, I don't choose it. I don't do the palettes that I should. There's some people who set up a palette in the beginning, and those are the colors that they tend to use. But that's actually not how I work. A lot of it is pencil and watercolor. So the pencils I had to literally choose from the bag, but the watercolor you have to mix, and that just it just I mean, not a lot of thought goes went into it. It's a lot of doing and just choosing. Like you do a lot of things, and then you realize that some of it looks good, and then you just replicate it. So it's very organic and hard to explain.
How long? No, but how long
I'm
did
sorry.
it take you to? How long did it take you to get to that? I mean, how long did it take you to say, okay, fine, this is it. This is what I want on paper.
Um, it took a while. It wasn't because I actually never reached that this is it thing. I just reach I like this thing. I come to oh, this, okay, this works. But I never reach oh, this is brilliant stage. I don't think I've ever I feel that for other people's work, but I don't think I've really, but I like some of my work more than others, and
Okay.
it takes some time to get there.
Which is your favorite frame from the book or spread from
The one that you showed,
the one that
actually.
I showed?
The one that she's dancing.
May I? May I? May I again?
Yes. The
Okay.
one where she's dancing. Yeah. Yes, that one. That's my favorite.
It's at the movement. You were talking about the movement, Ruchi. It's so. I mean, look at the grace. Just look at the grace. So it's a double spread where we show Ruchi has shown Shilu in so many different dance postures, and and
I
in the
remember.
background there's this special thing which you probably won't be able to see on the screen because it's not too visible there, but you'll have to tell us more about how the backdrop of that went about happening. So what we see in the foreground is of course Shilu dancing, but this what's happening in the imagination of the girl which is at the back.
I remember we discussed this because this was your brainchild. It was you said that I would like her to have these strong sort of women in different professions like dancers and acrobats, and you said that I would like her um, to not sort of um, not sort of want to be like them, but have them as like examples of what it is to be free and with your body. And so I was looking at a lot of references with dancers, and there's some of them are ballet dancers. They're adults. These are adult like women,
Yeah.
but trapeze artists and dancers and sort of physically expressive women, and uh, and I actually wanted her to sort of have poses like that, but also Indian. So then I was looking at Indian dances.
Yeah.
So some of the things that she's doing are very
Yeah.
they're very Indian poses of dance.
Yes.
They're not exactly that because you don't want her to be dancing a very strict dance, but they're very Indian movements, like the way she's moving. And I think that was when we were discussing, right? I remember that in some of the sketches the women were larger, and then we kind of pushed them back, and I kind of, it's all of that, I think.
Wow. Wow. I mean, to me, a lot of that is it's sort of blurry now. I don't yeah, but I remember the sheer joy of sitting through our discussions. And such long ones we used to have, detailed ones we used to have. I mean, that's what stayed on with me. But maybe the exact details of that, I now no longer remember. Maybe. Okay.
I remember because I went through the process of the actual, like, reaching there with from our discussions to there, and then it's kind of it I think all of that built up the book. So it's not just the illustrations; it's all of the things that we discussed and what you wanted to say and what you know, because your words are saying one thing, but you wanted to say so much with everything, and it was all really nice. It was all stuff that had to be said in some way. Of course, you don't say all of it in a book, obviously, but it adds to everything, and that's how you make those choices when you draw. It's quite awesome, actually.
Okay. I mean, were the did you find yourself? Um I mean, were there any moments where you found yourself totally consumed in that entire with the in that book completely? Totally, totally
Yeah,
immersed
there
that
were
you
lots
would
of.
wake up in the middle of the night thinking, okay, this is what it could, what can be on the page or something like that. It's
Yeah, it not. I don't pick up in the middle of the night ever, but yeah, it does. It does happen. Like you're doing something else, and then you suddenly, because you're thinking about it, and then you go and try it out, and those things happen a lot. They happen quite often, actually.
okay.
but but yeah, and this book, it was because there was a lot of drawing. There was a lot of drawing, so there was a lot of that. But yeah, I think the breakthrough was the color, because I was trying to get to that subtleness, and only watercolor kind of doesn't do that. I
Mm,
mean, I couldn't do that. There are some people who can,
mm,
but it took some time to get that effect of the pencil and the watercolor on top, and the softness that it creates. It took some time, and I think we were doing that. Like I think you might have some roughs of that. I can share it if you want.
yes, of
But
course.
those were the ones where it was just we wanted the light. We wanted the light, and we wanted to kind of. So initially, I thought we would blur the edges, so it'll be like a heavily exposed photograph, like like where the edges are sort of gone, and I was kind of trying to get there, but stumbled on this instead and kind of liked it.
One point where we had to, I think we changed. So there was one form in which the book was sort of ready before, in the first version. And remember, we had to change a few things later. I think the entire depiction of grandma, Nani, the Nannu.
Mm,
So
yes.
the first set of things that we had worked around was showing the grandmother as a stern sort of a grandmother. Remember,
Yes.
you had those illustrations, and then
Yes.
somewhere in
She
the
was more
middle of
drunk.
the course of doing the book, because of the feedback that we received from, and this particular feedback I remember getting from Mr. Rubin de Cruz at NBT, and he said somehow the grandmother is coming across as a very, in a very, very negative light. You're showing the grandmother, but a grandchild grandparent bond is so very beautiful. It's so loving. uh, that is not coming out here, and that sort of just changed the way I myself as a writer, as the writer, was looking at the book. So I
Mhm.
remember then telling you in a scrambled sort of way that, okay, I think we'll have to change this bit, because that was a feedback that really went deep inside me, and I said, yes, I mean, that's a huge mistake that I'm making with the book. So we had to change the
Yeah,
feel of the grandmother and all that.
I remember. Yeah, she was more. Her expression was very grumpy. Like
Very,
she was
very,
very judgy
very
in the
judgy.
earlier versions. She
Exactly.
was like
The judginess, yes, the
this.
judgmental sort of thing that was there in her, and that
She
was
was like this childish
coming from
thing.
the words that I was using, the way she was responding to the child's questions, is how that.
Also the drawings. Yeah, everything. Yeah. It was going in that, and
Yeah.
actually, I mean, we didn't think about it. We didn't think about, I mean, when I read it, I was like, okay, the grandmother is conservative
Yeah,
and she doesn't want, but
exactly.
that's not true in most cases. Like most grandmothers, even if they have some sort of, it's coming out of a place of caring.
Caring, yes.
And
And they're always, grandparents will always willy nilly end up being so indulgent. Uh,
Yeah.
so, so I'm like really eternally grateful I will be to Ruben for that feedback, because that sort of changed the entire trajectory of the book and the way the final book comes out. So it's like that priceless, that moment that happens in the journey of a book, and it sort of just changed its course in such a positive, beautiful way.
There's another major change that you made. I think this was fairly early,
Uh,
but you decided not to have the father.
yes.
Because in the earlier text, there was the father.
First draft, there was a, and I think there was also a child. There was also a boy. The
There was a reference to a boy because
Yes.
it
Yeah, there was
was,
a
I
reference
remember,
to the boy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Something
yeah,
like that. Yes.
yeah, and yeah. But
Yeah.
I kind of liked that it didn't have it. There was no need for a comparison there. Like there
Yes.
was no need
Yes.
for that. It was just about this little girl and how she feels.
Yes.
You know.
So, okay, now that you bring it up, I had forgotten about that actually. So let me just refresh that for everyone. So initially, the first draft that we had, that I had of this book, the written draft, the word draft, that is, story draft. It was, to do with, it was more about making a point about also how gender plays a role in, and it was doing it very overtly, that okay, if
Mm,
there was a boy there, and next to Shilu, would he have been at the receiving end of similar sort of remarks from the grandparent, that you're a 4-year-old or big boy, you can't be moving around, roaming around naked or just in your underwear and stuff like that. So it was becoming, but I mean, finally, of course, the book is so much about that, but we didn't want. So at some point, we felt that it's not required. I mean, that's making it too
mm.
overt, and it's just not needed there at all. Yeah. Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
glad
I
you
thought
brought
that
this
was a
up
good.
because I'd forgotten about this. Yeah.
Yeah. It's had a nice journey, the book, and that's kind of why it feels so special. It's grown from the early. I think that's how you measure things. Like you see how much they've improved,
Yes.
and it changes us as well. Like people who are working on it,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely. I mean,
that's
it's, yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the beauty of working on a project like this, where you change your mind and you change. I mean, the book kind of makes you change your mind, and then you become slightly better and you think about something more. And I think that's when a project kind of lets you do that, I think the work just ends up being better. There's no, you don't, it's not really a very sort of planned process. It's just
Yes.
something that happens. And I
Yeah.
think we
Yeah.
kind of allowed it to happen,
Yeah.
which
So,
which
which
was
is
great.
what made it so special, because you were so open to it. Not everyone would be open to something like that. I mean, even to,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And, but okay, so, but tell me, if you were to revisit this book, to draw it again and all that, would there be anything differently that you would do, or it would still be this?
I'm sure there would be something different. I mean, once you start drawing, you never stop. There's no end. I haven't ever come to a point where I'm so completely happy that I don't want to work on it more.
Exactly.
I get tired of it.
Yes.
That can happen, but I don't feel satisfied in right. I think you know how this feels.
Exactly. I mean, there have been times, Ruchi, when I have had to ask the printers to stop the printing in the middle of that process, because there's that one word I want to just change, and it's so annoying for anyone who's there at the other end. Uh, but I can't
Yeah.
help it. It's
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But I think it's just a function of being, thinking and alive, and it's just that you're coming up with you're interacting with different things all the time, and you think at some point of time you think one thing is important, and then you suddenly feel, oh, that is important too, and I want to do that instead. And it's just who we are. We're never going to be the same person,
Yeah.
and so we're never going to think the same thoughts. It's just it's quite nice actually.
So, okay, so now just moving away a little bit from our book. Uh, in terms of the influences that have been there in your life, I know your father himself must be a huge, I think he must be the first and the hugest inspiration for you and the motivating factor. So you will have to tell everyone about your father.
My parents are both artists. They both studied.
I didn't know about your mother as well. She's also an artist, is
Yeah,
she?
they're both
Wow.
artists. She's not practicing now, but
Okay.
my dad worked in design for advertising and design for a while,
Hmm.
and we've always had a lot of art in the house. So there's a lot of art. There's a lot of music. There's a lot of uh, you know plants. So
Are
it's
you
a
the
house.
child?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
So it was all concentrated on me. So yeah, it was. It's I've been lucky to have seen a lot of art, and not just visual art, but like plays and music, classical music. So it's I never actually valued it that way because it was just the norm for me. It didn't feel like something special, but it I guess all of these things sort of add up. It's just a lot of. We always used to go for exhibitions and look at paintings and art galleries and things. So it was a lot of that was happening, and they never taught me anything. So my even though they were artists, they kind of never said, okay, draw like this, or okay, now do this. Oh, why have you done it like this? They just gave me a lot of paper, and when I was younger, they gave me the walls. So so they've kind of let me be, which I appreciate because I feel like maybe I wouldn't have liked it as much if they had asked me to be a particular way. And even when I was studying in art school, they did not interfere in my work. They did not like my work. But they didn't say, oh, this is good or bad, or do it like this. It was I got the marks that I got. Didn't really score well at any point. In art, I mean, not like in studies I was good, but it I think a lot of the developing of art is it it's a very organic process.
Yeah.
And I think being free is a big part of that. Being sort of free to do whatever, to experiment the way you want, try out whatever you want, and then sometimes the result of that is that you don't want to do art, but that's okay because that's not in my case, but in a lot of cases, like it's you kind of know where you are and what you want. And luckily I got those kind of things. But in terms of visual influences, I don't know if that's what you want to know, but um I actually didn't have any strong fine art influences.
Okay.
My influences were more, I used to watch cartoons, and I used to sometimes watch. So my influences were more than visual, they were based on sort of ideas. So I was into a lot of nature conservation. Like I used to watch Captain Planet and be like, oh, save the earth and all of that. So it was a lot of my early paintings were about the earth is burning and there are these children saving it. like paintings like that. So it was a lot of it was um, more content and less visual. It wasn't pretty, or I was sorting those things out, but I was not really paying attention to the execution of it. I was just painting what I wanted to paint and writing what I wanted to write. And so I mean, in terms of art influence, I don't know how. It's probably really subtle and I haven't found out what it is exactly.
Yeah, but no, but okay. So, and when you were there at the Cambridge School of Art, I mean, there.
There it was.
So, how was it different from from how you were studying here, art?
So I did my bachelor's degree in Mumbai. I did a BFA in applied art,
Mhm.
and uh, that was design based. So a lot of the applications were for something.
Okay.
So you design for a poster, you design for something, and it was useful, but it wasn't what I
What? Okay.
had been doing, and it
So suddenly it would have constrained you in ways. I mean, you felt creatively constrained there. Is that so?
in some ways we had good people around, so it didn't feel that way, but it didn't I didn't really learn what was needed. So I think um, that I got in the Cambridge School of Art, where they expect you to drive your own. So it's a master's program, so there's no okay, do this. This is your project. You have to decide what you want to do, and then you have to lay down a plan, and then you have to just do it. So it's more like a self-driven course, and they guide you beautifully. It's just amazing. I mean, I had been drawing all my life, but on my first project there, which was observation and experiment, we were supposed to go out and draw from life, from anywhere. And I kind of froze up because I don't, it just didn't, I couldn't draw. And then my professor said, "You're afraid of drawing." And I was like, I've been drawing my entire life. But he was right, because I was not, I was afraid of failing. I think that's probably a kind of what it is, because always been drawing, but I was never trying to solve a visual problem. Like, how do I draw a tree? That was not one of my things. I just drew a tree, whichever way it came out, because I was working on what I was drawing. And then sort of, I think at the Cambridge School of Art, those two sides kind of came together. So I found a visual language, which I didn't have before. I mean, I kind of had it, but I didn't know that I had it. So I don't know if that I was just not aware.
To hone it, yeah, in that sense.
And the course really helped um, become more mindful of what the process was like, what my own process was like, which I hadn't really thought about before. And I think you can't do it when you're younger. I think it's sort of reflective uh, thing, and so that was how it changed. So the work really changed. So after the course, there's a visible difference in my work. You can see the change. What remains the same is the sort of core. What I'm trying to say
Yeah.
is kind of, it's been the same since I've, like, because I think that's who I am.
Yeah.
But it was a really good course.
And you're in touch with all your classmates there, and yes.
Yeah, not I've been a bit sort of slow lately, but they're all, it's a really nice community, and they're very helpful and very sort of connected. So it's the professors as well, they're all on Instagram, so
Okay. Okay.
so it's nice.
How active are you on social media? I mean, across handles.
I've been very inactive lately, but I'm hoping to get back. I think I've just been busy with work, and somehow I used the COVID excuse and just went underground. I kind of I like it sometimes. I like not being
I know.
like social.
I know.
You have this, right?
I
You
have it all the time. I mean,
are social,
for the last 1.5 months, I have, or more maybe, I've just withdrawn from everything. I mean, there are weeks when I don't even know what's happening in the social media world in that sense, because I just don't feel like.
it's
And then
refreshing.
there is something that happens that pulls you back, but it's a very unwilling sort of reluctant sort of going back to it. And then there are moments when, I mean, at least for myself, I know I enjoy jumping into it, but those moments are very brief and few and far between and fleeting. But when I'm there, I enjoy. But
Yeah,
it's that
I
constant
think you're. I
festival.
think
It's that the fact
yes.
that uh, one has to be there because of the kind of work we are doing. I think that is what makes it more difficult for me.
I agree. I agree. I enjoy it uh, when I have a plan. Sort of, I know what I'm going to work on, and I know what I'm going to share, and then I kind of want to share it. And that's when I enjoy it because I feel like I'm in control. If I just try to be on it, I feel like I'm running out of meaningful things to say, and then it just feels empty. And there's a lot of interaction, but not enough of content in it.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
just feels that way.
Exactly. That's how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, is there anything else I want to know? I mean, there are so many things I want to know, but one is, yeah, your choice of medium. I mean, you are strictly, have you ever done anything digital at all? Or have you sworn
I,
yourself off it completely?
I do digital work, but so before the Cambridge School of Art, I've done illustrations which will never see the light of day, which which were completely digital. I mean, the pencil sketch was on paper, but all the coloring was digital, and I've done that kind of work, and I have disowned it completely. But now I've found that there are some cases if you have to do a commercial project and you have to finish on time, and the result is you want there to be a correct result, but not necessarily like a piece of art. Like you want it to look good, but you don't want it doesn't necessarily need to have your soul, then I'm trying to, it's still not there, but I'm trying to find a way where I can do work on paper, but I can uh, have more freedom for, edits or something needs changing or a size difference. Those kind of things I can work on the computer, which really helps. If you have to survive in the industry, then sometimes these kind of things
Yeah.
work better.
Yeah.
So traditional medium takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to. I mean, watercolor takes a lot of time. You have to stretch the paper, and then you have to wait till it dries, and then you have to draw on it, and then you have to, it takes a while. And then if you make a mistake, you can't really go back. So you have to do a new thing again, which I love, but you need a lot of time.
Yeah. 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 True. True. How much of
You
Bombay is there in the illustrations that you do? I mean, so
how much
one
of
is of
bomb?
course no. So one is of course the way, if there's a literal sort of showing of Bombay in your frames. I'm asking. I'm not asking that. I'm asking. I mean, how much of the experience of growing up in Bombay? I mean, how much of that Bombay girl experience would be filtering in some hidden ways, subtle ways, into things that you draw?
Actually, don't know, but I've been told that my figures look Maharashtrian. I don't know if that is true, but I've been told that. Like, I make Maharashtrian faces, is
Okay.
what I've been told.
Okay.
And I think it's just people around you. But I think in terms of Bombay, while I love Bombay. I used to love it more. Now I love it less because of the pollution. But I think it was always I think I've never been the kind of person who draws reality well. My reality is not strong. I am a dreamer and I draw things from my head often. And they're not. So I'm not even, I mean, it's very strange, but I'm not very good at seeing. So if we shut the camera now I notice it. But if we shut the camera now and you ask me what were you wearing, I would not know. I
Yeah.
am not,
Yeah.
which is really strange because I'm an artist and I should know. I should notice things and I should. But I think my imagination is more
Yeah. It's
like
yeah.
the stronger voice.
Yeah, I think it's very very similar for me as well. I mean, I'll be in a room. I'll be with a room. I'll be in a room full of people, and I may have chatted with the person for 2 hours on end, and I wouldn't notice what the person is wearing, or what the hair looked like or what. So yeah, I mean, it's because all the time it's up something up there where the conversation is happening. There are always flashes that are happening inside the mind, and as you say, the dreamer sort of a thing. That's how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
And
do understand that.
I'd probably notice what that person said more than how that person looked,
Yeah.
and it or how that person, like was he or she sad or very happy, or
That's
I
a
can
good.
get that sense, but
Yeah.
not a visual. It's
Yeah.
very strange,
No, which is
but
very
yeah.
strange because I, again, like you, I'm a writer and I need to be observant. I need to pick up these things, but there's something else that's happening in the mind, and it's all imagination. It's something is happening there. Yeah.
Just being a dreamer, and also I think also in your case, same as mine, is that you have a sense of what you would like the world to be, or what you would like it to be, like an ideal dream thing in your head, and that is so strong and so powerful that it will color everything else that you do, and I love that actually.
I love that.
When
Yes, I mean, that's
you
one
can,
thing about me I would never want to change at all.
yeah,
And speaking to you, yeah. Nice, nice, nice. Anything else that, I mean, because these are the kind of thoughts that come to me when I think of the book, but anything else that comes to your mind?
I would like to know. I would actually like to know how you write, because I know that after your first draft, I've kind of seen the process, but I don't know how, because writing for a picture book is a different thing, right? It's something that I might be able to see how you could do it, but how did you reach that first draft, or how do you have it in your mind, and then do you just
Yeah.
come up with it?
Before it gets on paper, a lot of it has already happened in my mind.
Yeah.
Uh, so in some way, maybe the words have been floating about. In some way, maybe the words, the way they get strung together, that has already been happening there.
Mm,
Um, I necessarily may not have a beginning in mind and an end in mind when I
yeah.
finally put those thoughts there. But the
Mm,
essence of what I want to say is somewhat there. And there are
mm,
times when that's what I struggle with, because in my mind I know what I'm trying to say, and yet the way those words come out, they just don't sound right. So
mm,
I mean that's a constant battle that is happening inside the mind, uh, to get the sound of it right. I mean, for me, that's the most important thing. What's called the narrative voice. I mean, for me, it's the sound. I mean, how are the sounds sounding to me when I am reading them in my mind or reading them aloud? And that is what takes the maximum amount of time. Ooh,
I can imagine.
years,
And do you
years it can take. Like
do
this
you
story,
feel?
Ruchi, you will not believe this story. So we finally started working on this story in 2006, or 15 or 16 maybe. 16, I think. Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
When I wrote this story for the first time, it was 2000 and either 10 or 11. Okay.
Wow.
And the form in which the story was, I remember writing it down and being very, very unsure about the story, because and at that time, I didn't even have a single book of mine published. So it wasn't as if I was an published author by then.
Mm,
So I remember having this manuscript with me, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I went to the first person to have seen this manuscript, the first version of it, the first draft, was Anita Roy. She was at Zuban. She was at Young Zuban at that time, right? So Zuban, she was handling Young Zuban, and so I went to the office to show her this. I said, Anita, you've got to read it and tell me if it's sounding right. Okay. And
mm,
I remember sitting there so nervously, looking at, just trying to gauge from the expressions in her eyes while she was reading. And it was in the form of like it was on paper, right? And I was getting
mm,
extremely jittery because I didn't know, I was unsure. And then there were moments when I would
Yeah.
hear the little chuckle in her while she was reading, you know. And when she
Yeah.
finished, and she did make a couple of changes, which of course none of it. I mean, so much change in the story after that. But I remember in that draft, she said, "Yeah, if you tweak the words a bit like this, it'll work a lot better." But I know it works. Yeah, and I kept asking her, "Do you think it works?" And she says, "Yes, yes, yes, it works." You know, it was just that. And for me, that is all I wanted to hear, that yes, it works. I had no idea what I would do with this manuscript because A, I wasn't writing then. I mean, as in, I hadn't become an
Mm,
author, I published author. Two, publishing on my own or in the form of, or, you know, forming a company. I mean, it was nowhere in the scheme of things for me, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
this was one of those things that I wrote just because I wanted to write it. That's it.
Yeah. It sounds it.
You know, it's like it wasn't a book it wasn't a story which was meant to take the form of a book. It's as simple as that. It was
Mm,
always meant to be that little scribble that you do and keep hidden somewhere. So I don't know, it's like at some point I felt that okay, maybe I have to revisit it. And that's when I showed it to
mm.
Samantha. And I remember, I mean, she was suggesting, she says, "You've got to therefore see Ruchi's work if this is what you have in mind." And I'm so glad it's all
She
yeah.
has she has her judgment
Yeah.
of work, and the flavor of it
Yes.
is really good.
Yes.
She has an amazing sense of I mean, she's amazing.
Yes.
She has very she's very wise,
Oh yes.
you know,
Oh yes. Oh
I
yes.
feel.
Yeah, I mean there have been other influences. Like I remember showing this to Samina Mishra. In fact, Pirate is the name of her pet cat. Okay, so that the
I
inspiration.
think you mentioned that. Yes.
Yes. So the inspiration for Pirate actually comes from the actual pirate there. You know, so those little
Yeah.
things which are strung in here. I don't know.
Yeah. It's I really I find it quite amazing that um you know the, because like the things that you think and you want to say can have so many different forms, and that first making it into a structured part is really interesting to me. It's quite amazing.
Yeah.
And then working on it to make a book is much bigger. But
Yeah. And what about your book or oblique books where you write and you illustrate?
I still have not
No, don't tell
formed.
me.
I have a number of things in process, but they're not. I think you'll know what I mean. Like they're not at the point yet where I think they're a unified thing.
Right, right.
They're, and then the thing is, there are some of these thoughts which I have, which sort of cross over from one book to another, and I haven't been able to put them in their place yet.
Hmm.
I haven't been able to make it into a concise. That's why I'm so, it's really interesting to me how you get there, because I'm trying to get there in. I mean, I know a lot of people who work on this kind of thing, but um, putting the image and the text and all of it in the right place, somehow I just end up not liking it. I have to work on it.
Don't be too
And
hard
then
on
because
yourself. Don't judge yourself too harshly because you have that. You're one of those few people who has that sensibility, and you know it, woman.
this
Don't
year I will have a rough draft for you this year, just
Yes.
for you to see.
Yes.
To
Yes.
share something. This is the year.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, but it was great. It was so easy. It's always so easy to talk
It's
to
always
you.
so easy with you, Ruchi. It always is, right? So, I mean, we can do it all the time. We don't even have to have a formal
Yeah.
reason to be
Yes.
doing it.
Yes, please.
Yes.
If we don't meet at Bologna, we should at least keep up this.
Oh, yeah. I must tell everyone that apart from that one time in Bombay that we met in India, other than that, I have met only Colonia each time. It's with for the last 5 years. It's kind of funny.
We should do India trip. We should meet here. We are here.
This year it will force us to meet here.
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Ruchi.
It was so nice. Thank you for
No, thank you for
having
this.
this, arranging this.
Yeah. And we have red. It's
Oh,
like we didn't
now I'm gonna remember this.
yeah, but a bit of red for us. Okay.
Bye.